I'm Kyle Nixon, and I'm a GIS analyst for Roanoke County here in Virginia. I'm going to tell you today about our county's use of Cityworks for building permitting and our creation of ESRI operations dashboards using Cityworks data. The county began using Cityworks AMS for our stormwater management and trash pickup programs in about 2015. In the last 18 months, we have implemented Cityworks PLL for our building permit system as well. Very quickly, we realized that it was not going to be as easy to get data out of PLL as it was with AMS. Since PLL is configured to allow for a wide variety of data entry and custom fields, some of those fields and custom additions are harder to query for. For instance, data groups and some fields in tasks, fees, people, and other panels were not formatted the way we were looking for. As a side note, we use Crystal reports for creating permit documents and mailings in Cityworks, so we got to know the database pretty well. We also didn't have access to the Cityworks API initially, so we used database triggers to accomplish some automation and wrote SQL commands for Crystal reports. The other reason we got into spatial views in SQL was using ESRI's operations dashboard. Cityworks is administered here by our GIS team and IT, so we naturally looked towards making ESRI operations dashboards. As an example of the querying problems we had, if you would like to retrieve any of the types of data that are in the highlighted box here, you would be missing that from the EURL result that you get. We needed the data located in the extra panels here for our purposes. Inside most of our building permits, we collect information on the value of the work being done on the buildings. We use this to collect fee amounts on those permits. We realized that this data could be used to visualize the value of work being done in an area. We needed a way to get this information out of the data groups and into a dashboard of some kind. You can see here we sometimes took the area of a new building or in addition to a new building and applied a rate to the square footage to arrive at a building value. This value was then used for calculating the fee amount. In some cases, we simply asked applicants for the cost of the work being performed if there was no square footage involved. We also store building inspections in the workflow as tasks and needed a way to get due dates, inspection types, and who the inspector was into a dashboard of some kind. To bring all data we wanted into the ArcGIS environment, we decided to use linked server tables and bring the data over that way. With these linked server tables, Cityworks data was accessible inside of our ArcSDE database. Using the database in this way, we had access to any field and any table in the database. For every table you have a link created, you can go into the ArcGIS SDE and then create a view using those tables. Ideally, you would join a feature in your SDE to the features in Cityworks using the instance map layer and template map layer tables that are provided with Cityworks. And as a side note, views or joins created here must have a shape field included and only one shape field. Once you have created these views with a shape field, it will be registered with the SDE as a spatial view, and then you can then publish this as a feature service. As you can see, we used SQL Server Management Studio to create these views between the two databases. Selecting from a temporary table created in the view is the best practice here, as everything gets a nice alias to remember it by, and it also allows you to select from a selection. Another thing to remember here is that other than the shape field, we also need one object ID field. This needs to be an integer, so if you have a double or some other type, it needs to be converted. Once the view was created in SQL, you can use ArcMap, ArcCatalog, or ArcGIS Pro, whichever you use, to register this view with a database. This is under the Manage and then Register with Geodatabase dialogues that are there when you right-click on the feature in Catalog. Just to make clear what our process was, it went in this order. First, we identified the tables required in Cityworks to create our views. We took this list to the SQL administrator, or your DBA, whoever that is, at the county, and requested linked server tables. We then wrote views to these tables from within the ArcGIS SDE. We then had to register those views with the database as features. Once the database recognized them as features, we were able to publish services with those. We then went and created maps in our enterprise portal and then operations dashboards with those maps. Here are some of the map services we created with these spatial views. One displays all current active permits and their application dates. The next displays, in our case, inspection data and their results and dates. The last displays data on the value added to the buildings through permit applications. This was harvested as a part of the permit process because most fees are calculated based off of the work of the value of the work being done. This is a dashboard created with the Active Permits feature service. It has indicators with different numbers of permits by type, as well as a pie chart comparing those with other building permit types. There is also a graph with monthly counts of permits. This is a dashboard displaying the value added from building permits. It contains a heat map of the values, summed together, as well as a monthly sum of the value added by building permits. This dashboard contains the inspection data that we pulled from Cityworks' Workflow tab. It has a map of the inspections and graphs showing the number of inspections per month, as well as their results, whether they failed, passed, or were canceled. The building commissioner makes great use of this to better target education efforts and reduce the number of failed inspections and double visits. Just to summarize the project, we thought that the flexibility and freedom of choice that these spatial views provided was a big plus for us. Once the structure of the first view is in place, additional views and dashboards were much simpler to construct, even with different fields included, because we used the first views as templates. We now have knowledge to make more queries and triggers that would further customize our Cityworks environment.